Hello, thanks for watching. This is the Carroll Foundation blog. My name is Pete Allen and I've been skydiving for over 40 years, which if you think about all the extra travel that I've done, it's left a pretty unhealthy footprint on the planet. And so my goal here is to interview people within skydiving that are making a change and discover initiatives that are already in place and hopefully find a way to keep doing this beautiful activity. Now, today, we're very fortunate to have Annika from Sweden. She is responsible for sustainability in Swedish skydiving, and she's put in place a few interesting initiatives that we're going to look into today and hopefully dive a little bit deeper into the whole issues of carbon offset. So, Annika, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Sure. And so the first question I have for you, Annika, is, was it external? So was it from outside of the Federation, or was it a personal initiative that kind of put you on this line of carbon offset?
Well, I would say both. For me personally, it was quite important because me, just as well as you, have been skydiving a lot, but also have a background in environmental science. So for me, it was very important to try to figure out how we can do it in a more sustainable way. So it was a personal initiative, but it was also some pressure from fellow skydivers. And I would also say actually from the Swedish Parachute Association, there was a willingness to take more responsibility, but perhaps not the knowledge on how to do it. So that's how it started for us, I think. Not so much from the surrounding society perhaps, but more from the skydiving community.
Nice. And so that's you come from a background of climate change research at Stockholm University, the Berlin Center, and also you've served on the board of the Swedish Parachute Federation and also the Swedish Flying Federation as well, in your role as a sustainability expert. So a question for you about the drop zones. Are all drop zones on board with this carbon offset? And do they have to be in order to maintain the part of the Federation?
Well, they are now. It didn't start out that way. It started as a voluntary scheme for each skydiver to decide whether or not they wanted to do the carbon offset option. And then they just added that on when they manifested for each jump. So that was in 2011. And that was the first year that we offered it from the Swedish Parachute Association as a service to skydiving clubs. And then it was up to the club to incorporate it in the manifest and talk to their members about it. And at that time, we carbon offset 10,000 jumps, and that's about 1/8 of all the jumps that was conducted in Sweden, or skydive that was conducted in Sweden that year. And then between 2012 and 15, the willingness to carbon offset the skydivers gradually grew, but it was still on a voluntary basis. But then in 2016, there was a decision made at the Swedish Parachute Association together with all the skydiving clubs to make it mandatory. From there on, it's been mandatory for all skydives in Sweden. And that includes all the students, all the tandem passengers, all the fun jumps, all the teams, everything.
Fantastic. So as I've been discovering on my journey through this sustainability world, there has to be other options first. So did you guys go straight for the carbon offsetting? You know, what kind of route did you take on this to see that you were doing the right thing?
Yeah, and I think that is a very, very important question. You have to see carbon offset in the context of a wider mix of actions. You cannot treat carbon offset as a way of compensating for emission while not actually taking actions to reduce the emissions that you are setting out there. So yeah, it should not, I think it's very important to stress that it should not be the primary tool that you have for working with sustainability or reducing your emissions, but it's a measure to deal with those emissions that are particularly difficult to actually reduce. So for us, since this was an initiation from the Swedish Parachute Association, we started with drawing out an environmental policy. This is where we are heading, and this is what we are wanting to do. And from that policy, we structured an environmental management system. And that is a set of processes and practice that can enable an organization or a skydiving club to reduce environmental impacts and increase the effectivity, I would say, of the measures that you are taking. And for a skydiving club, it could be, if you have the money, the possibility to to buy a more effective aircraft, then that might not be something that you can do. I mean, it costs a lot of money, but then you can increase the loading capacity or effectiveness. You maybe can do better turnarounds with the airplanes, make more effective jump runs, etc. So there's a lot of things that you have to start with first. And then you do all of that, and then you try to do it even better. And then you do all of that and try to do it even better. And sometime, at some point, you will come to a line where you can't actually do anything more. And that's when you start the carbon offset, and not before that. And then each year, you do a review of the efforts that you made. And perhaps this year you can do even more. And for skydiving clubs, at least at my home club, I mean, it's not only the actually jumping and skydiving, it can also be carpooling to the club. It can be making the clubhouse more electricity effective, etc. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to start with, and then you take it down, and then you have this pot of things that you can't do anything about, and that's where you offset.
And that's the critical message, I think, that I really want to, like, it's fantastic hearing you say this, Annika, because for most people, that step to carbon offset, that's their first port of call. They go online and they kind of see this relatively easy option, but seeing it as the last of the last of the last things that you actually attack, that's a fantastic way to see it. And that's really the message I want to portray here. And so what are the next steps? You know, where do you see this going from here? You know, what is, for the Swedish Federation, what is the next step with this?
Well, I think for us, it's, I mean, we gain a lot of trust of actually wanting to do this and a lot of willingness, but it's still, I mean, I think we still can do a lot more out on the skydiving clubs. And I think there's more effectiveness in the entire administration of the clubs that can be done better, I think. And I think some people might still be hang up on the point that you say that, okay, but now we do the carbon offset, so we are doing good. And I think we still have some work with that mentality to say that, yes, we are doing that, but we still have to do all of this and do it even more. Yeah. So I think still working on that is,
so like continual audits, energy audits, if you like, expenditure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I don't know if we have time on this one. I'd like to explore more maybe with you in the future, the different types of carbon offset. Maybe just very briefly, could you give us an idea of the offset investment programs that you guys do invest in?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of them out there. We have opted for something that's called CDM, and that's short for the Clean Development Mechanism. And it's one of what is called the flexible mechanism, which is defined by the Kyoto Protocol. And it provides emission reductions through projects, and it's generated through something that's called certified emission reduction units. Okay. And these can be traded to an emission scheme. Mm-hmm. So, well,
no, it's a lot of detail.
It allows emission reduction projects in development countries. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you invest in that, the equivalent of the amount of emission that you have put out there. So if you emission 1 ton of carbon dioxide, you buy 1 ton.
Okay, cool.
So it's that.
Yeah, well, and what I've done is actually in one of the previous blogs, I linked a really interesting ResearchGate paper on this very practice, and it outlines CDM, the gold standard, goes into a lot more detail. So if people are watching and they want to dive a little bit deeper into that, please go back to the last couple of blogs and check out the paper that we've shared. All right, so Annika, anything else you'd like to say before I kind of close it down?
Well, I just want to stress that it's very important that we keep on doing all this work. I mean, we all love skydiving and we hopefully always will love it, but it comes with a cost and we need to take some responsibility for that.
Very nice last words. Thank you very much, Annika. And thank you out there for watching. We'd like to hear back from you on social. If you have some feedback on what you've heard Annika and myself discussing, or maybe you have an initiative that you would like to share. And just to let you know, we're trying to get an interview with the people that are currently trialing the electric caravan, which is a pretty interesting project. It did its inaugural flight last week. So again, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you very soon with some more information.